So here I am at the Scantic River again, my favorite place. And I wanted to say a few things about the upcoming workshop, Unleashing the Inner Archer, Fall Focus and Goal Setting. And in particular, I want to talk about goal setting and trauma. And I am no expert in this, but it is something that I've considered quite a bit. And so when we're talking about goal setting, you know, the rhythm of staccato is very clear and direct, right? Like, whew, physics degree, right? You know, and we all have the capacity to show up with that really wholehearted, direct, full-on passion, right? To set goals and move toward them. And for those of us who have some trauma, which is, I'm sure we all know that trauma is, it's how the body responds to an event, to a devastating or very difficult event, such as like losing a loved one when you're young, or even when you're not young, living in a war zone, and as experts, Resma Menachem and Bessel van der Kolk and others have shared, trauma is a process that gets coded into the body, that gets woven into our systems. And so, it's not just the event that happened, but it's the body's response to it. And those of us who move, and also I should say, trauma doesn't have to be from just one specific event. I'm sure everyone knows this too, but it could also be from a series of difficult events or traumatic events, such as being a person of color, living in a society that privileges and centers the needs of white people, right? So that experience could also get written into the body as trauma. We don't really know what's going to be a trauma or what's going to wind up showing up as trauma for different people. It depends on a lot of different circumstances and conditions, right? But some of the things to consider when we're moving in the space of goal setting, number one, I'm really coming with some flexibility, self-compassion, and just really honoring a gradual process that might sometimes feel like it's kind of zigzaggy, or 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, right? So just to say a tiny bit more about those things, so when we, if we do bear a lot of trauma, and even if we've done a lot of work on it, sometimes it has another round, right? If we're bearing a lot of trauma, it can feel difficult to, well, for one thing, we can experience a lot of anxiety and depression, right? And that alone can make it hard to believe that goals matter, right? So even setting goals and certainly moving toward them can be really challenging. And so we're really wanting to honor wherever we are in our process, right? And sometimes we need to just move through and be with wherever we are. Sometimes setting those really big, strong, clear, direct, wholehearted goals might not be as available, or it might be that we just set the intention, and maybe we're not fully embodying it yet, right? Another thing to keep in mind is that to be in the space of goal setting and goal achievement, right, of really staccato, or this life rhythm, takes some level of activation, right? It's, in flowing, we're really grounded. We're bringing that parasympathetic nervous system online, right? And then as we move into staccato, there's some level of activation, right? And it's necessary to move and make and build and construct, right? And design and bring into the world. And that can feel like a lot if we are coping with a lot of trauma, right? So it's not fight flight, but it's fight flight adjacent, right? It's a level of activation that can be difficult to sustain and to stay in, right? So part of the work is thinking about, like, how do we sustain, what's our capacity to sustain staccato, to sustain activation, right? So that's and also I'll say, sometimes if we've had to be in fight flight for long periods of time, right, when we've learned those patterns, like we may go into activation and then go straight into fight flight, really, and not be able to stay in that space of fight flight freeze, right, and not be able to stay in that steady, directed, clear, strong, grounded place of activation and presence. There's a little more. Gosh, I feel like I could talk about this all day. Some of this is coming from my work with teens, and really from my own experience and my own practice as someone who has worked with, certainly some trauma. So the next thing is flexibility, okay? And flexibility, we might, sit down at our desk and be like, okay, my goal is, I don't know, whatever. I'm not getting a good example at this moment. My goal is to make the best garden I can make in this 12 by 12 space that I have, and have at least one caprese by the end of summer. Okay, whatever it is. When I'm setting a goal, I'm serving an intention, right? My goal really is an intention made very explicit. And so if I have a lot of trauma, what I think is my intention might not wind up being my intention, right? So like, for example, if I might set a goal to complete my master's degree in engineering, and maybe, but what I'm serving with this goal is the need to honor my fascination with structures and forces, right? And to work with urban planners to make spaces that are friendly for families or something, right? That same goal could also be serving the intention to escape my feelings of inadequacy, right? To escape the anxiety that comes from my feelings of inadequacy arising from some kind of trauma. And so that's going to feel completely different, right? It's going to be a harder road, right? And so as we start to experiment with some different goals and with goal setting, we might get in there and find that the intention we thought we were serving, is coming from a place of like trauma or from like unidentified unconscious needs, right? And if that's the case, we might find that we want to adapt our goals. We might want to serve a different intention instead of like kind of serving our ego's need to escape difficulty, right? And to prove itself. We might be able to serve a different need, which could be to be in service, or really it's the difference between creating goals that arise from places of pain, or creating goals that arise from the heart, really, from our passion, from our courage, maybe even from our destiny. Okay, so we have self-compassion, flexibility, and also just honoring that this can be a really gradual process. Oh my God, this video is so long. Just honoring that this can be a gradual process, and that it might not feel that we're charging ahead in the way that we wish we were, and just honoring that. It's completely fine. And sometimes, knowing that as much as we might wish it to be a little different, honoring exactly how it is going to help us to move through it. And sometimes those of us who have experienced big challenges and difficulty and trauma, when we can transmute that, Gabrielle Roth, the creator of the 5 Rhythms, said we transform our suffering into art, right? And often those are the people that show up with tremendous power and compassion and and passion, you know? So, honoring that, even if it's not, just honoring the power of everything that we bring, and really letting our process guide us and taking it slow sometimes. So those are really the indications for working with goals and goal setting in the 5 rhythms. And so self-compassion, flexibility, honoring a gradual process, and just being with wherever we are. And sometimes setting the intention and knowing that it might take a while to get there.